Oh boy, I just read out this whole introduction, and apparently I wasn't actually live. So awesome! Sorry about that. Hello everyone, and welcome to today's live stream where we are showing off our upcoming general relativity update, and we will also be doing a live question and answer session on Discord. If you go to our official Discord server, the link is in the video description. You will be able to join the Q&A chat voice channel, and the text channel associated with that voice channel is where you can find a place to submit your questions. And
All right. Hello,
I
everybody.
and
Welcome to the stream. I think we're just still getting things
um,
set up here.
um,
See, Doc is starting the stream on Discord here. We should have the one on
excuse me
YouTube
for a moment.
following fairly shortly.
Sindri, you were interrupting me.
Oh, geez. Well, I didn't know. I couldn't hear you.
Well, no, well, follow the stream on YouTube.
On YouTube. All right. All right. I'll pull that up now too.
Sorry, everyone. Okay, where was I? Yep, so we're showing off the GR update, and we are taking questions on Discord. You can go to the text channel on the Q&A chat voice channel and ask questions there. If anyone can't join Discord and asks questions on the YouTube live chat, I will try to answer them there as well. Though there's a lot going on and I'm not very good at multitasking, so excuse me if I don't manage to get to everything or if there's some delay. So, yeah, anyway, let's. I think it's about time we got started. Alright, what shall we look at first? There are so many options. Let's first go check out. Let's see if Cygnus X1 looks any good right now. I haven't updated the catalog since the latest updates have been made to the program. Nope, that is definitely not what that's supposed to look like. All right, we're 0 for 1 here. Why does this look like this? My goodness. Oh well. Yeah, this could use a little work.
Something's a little bit odd there.
Yeah. All right, well, let's go to SS433, which I know is set up properly. There we go. It still looks a little weird in HDR mode. We haven't gotten the HDR mode settings quite pinned down yet. But if we switch over to auto exposure, it'll look proper. And it's so bright that even the darkest exposure is still too bright to see the core. And you can see the white supergiant star in the background is very dim compared to the brightness of this micro quasar here. And in fact, most of the brightness of that star we're seeing is actually reflected light from the quasar, the micro quasar here. And if we zoom out, you'll see that the star is mostly illuminated by reflected light. That's how bright this thing is. This thing emits as much radiation as 2.6 million suns. And yes, as a space engineer just said there, the reason it moves when you move towards and away from it is the light travel time, which is now taken into account as part of this update. So let's turn on time. And as you can see, it rotates way too fast because it's so small at full time, at 1 time speed. So if we go down to 1/1000th speed, and there we go.
I mean, it's not really rotating too fast. It's just that our pathetic human eyes can't keep up.
And for today, I think I'll tune my settings to make things a little easier to see. There we go. And let's go to a different object now, and we can play with its properties. And see what we can do in this with these new black holes. We'll go to the center of this globular cluster here. And go back to real time. Let me make sure that my settings are good for this. Yeah, should be. Yeah, that should be good. I don't know why the performance looks this bad. There's this weird issue where the stream or the capture looks way more stuttery than it actually looks in engine. It's bizarre. But anyway, let's play with the properties of this particular black hole. So we can do things in the editor here, like we can increase the density of its disk. Now it's extremely dense, and we can increase the thickness. We can change the temperature. Yeah, this probably looks really jerky on the stream, but it's not. I mean, the thing is getting 30 FPS. It's just a weird capture issue. And regarding the jets, we can increase their density. And so here the jets are illuminated solely by light that's being reflected from the accretion disk. Or we can decrease the jet density a little bit and crank up their temperature. And then increase their velocity so we can get a stronger Doppler effect. And maybe increase their brightness a little bit. And if you see momentary like blacking out around the jets like that, that's due to the limit on how many times the ray can be, how many steps the ray can take through the scene before it has to terminate. Because if there's no limit to that, then the performance is going to not work in real time. But we haven't completely figured out exactly what the termination conditions for the rays are going to be. For those of you who don't know, this is done with a form of ray tracing. So it's not going to look like that for the final release, but we just haven't gotten the exact values tuned yet. So just in case you see that and are wondering what it is. And then other things we can do here, let's basically get rid of the accretion disk. We'll pause time, and we'll basically get rid of the jets. And we'll go back to HDR mode here. And we'll play with the black hole itself. So let's go to right here. We'll give it a spin of 0. Now this is what black holes have always looked like in Space Engine, this right here. And let me tweak the graphics settings. I don't know why it's behaving like this. Like I said, it's mostly just the stream. It's not actually anything wrong with the performance in engine. So this is what black holes have always looked like in Space Engine. They've been spherically symmetric like this. And you know, they just look the same from every angle, and light, no matter which direction it comes from or is going to, will behave the same way. And this special case of black hole is known as a Schwarzschild black hole. But what we have in this version is a Kerr-Newman metric, not a Schwarzschild metric. So we can increase the spin of the black hole, and as we view it from the equator here, you can see that it has an asymmetric appearance. And that's caused by the angular momentum of the black hole as it spins, to just use a term that's easy to understand but not exactly how it works. But as it spins, it drags the fabric of space-time around with it. So let's see if we can open up a grid here. Maybe turn magnitude down a little bit. And then you can see how, as these grid lines move towards the black hole, they're warped around, they're twisted in this counterclockwise direction. And if we go back to the editor here, we change the spin back to 0, you see now there's no twisting. But then we increase the spin, and it twists more and more and more. And that's the frame dragging effect, which is caused by any rotating mass in space. Even Earth's rotation would have a frame dragging effect. It's just so small that it's very difficult to measure. But black holes, it's very obvious because they're such extreme objects that general relativistic effects like this are very easy to observe. Okay, now we can go back to normal exposure, and let's turn off the grid here. And then we'll look at something very special, which is something that almost certainly cannot happen in reality, but can happen in Space Engine because we're not bound by reality, which is what would happen if a black hole had a spin greater than 1. In other words, if it was spinning faster than the maximum realistic value. And the answer is the singularity. As you increase the singularity turns into a ring and moves farther and farther away from the center of the black hole. And as it gets closer and closer to the event horizon, it reaches the event horizon at a spin of 1. And as you go higher than that, there is no longer an event horizon. The singularity is visible, is naked. It's called a naked singularity. And so if we increase this value some more, then what we actually have here is a naked ring-shaped singularity. It almost looks like a lens floating in space. I have no idea why the stream is this jerky when the frame rate is fine. It's weird. I'll see if there's any more settings I can tweak. What happens if I turn this all the way down? It almost helps. Of course, then the precision is so low that it just doesn't look right. But just to show what it looks like when everything is turned up as high as possible.
While Harbinger Dawn sorts things out on his end. But now's a great time to get questions in, if you've got some questions.
All right, there we go. Got the stream back. I'm not really sure why it died. I actually got an error message saying that NVENC took too long to encode the frame, so I think that's just largely my graphics card being a little old. I'm gonna get a new one in the not too distant future, but until then I'm stuck with some old Pascal era technology. So that's from back in early 2017 that this graphics card came out, so it's like 5.5 years old now. I have no idea why the stream is this choppy. It shouldn't be. But whatever. Oh yeah, let's put some jets on this thing before I actually go back and start reading chat. There we go. All right, let's see. Oh, there is so much to read through here. Oh, I'm so bad at this. I'm sorry, guys. Let's see. Someone asked here, is there going to be an option to disable or enable light travel distortion? Um, no. That, I mean, that doesn't make any physical sense. Are there any plans to add relativistic effects to non-warping, fast-moving vessels? Possibly. That could be a thing we do in the future. Um, I don't know when that might be implemented, but it's certainly something that we keep in mind. And for the people saying that OBS can't capture Space Engine's window and has to capture the whole screen, I know that. I am doing a screen capture. Please add in a future update rotation of rings on ships, like the habitation rings. I actually have been doing some work on that myself, and uh, yeah, the rudimentary rotation like that should be very easy to implement. Just need to finish polishing it up. The difficulty with stuff like that is actually in um, figuring out how to implement it all in the catalog and how to deal with issues like gimbal lock by using a 3-axis rotation system. And yeah. Let me scroll up here, see what else has been posted. What GPU am I using? I'm using a GTX 1080 Ti. And for the people wondering about when you travel forwards and backwards and it causes everything to, move like this due to light travel delay, for people wondering, well, would you even be able to see anything if you were hypothetically traveling backwards faster than light? It doesn't matter in this case because we are only simulating the light travel time delay in sort of a classical sense and not the other relativistic effects involved in the camera moving at that speed. So it's just for calculating the position of all of the features in the accretion disk and the jets, because you can't create the accurate appearance of the disk and the jets without taking into account light travel time. Because if we view the jet from overhead, then you can see that everything looks kind of symmetric. But then as we move down like this, then things on the right side get sort of compressed, as in they seem to get smaller in size as you look towards and away from the camera, and things on the left seem to get stretched out and move faster. And that's how the disc should look, because those are light travel time effects. Also, for anyone wondering about the little black specks dancing around on the disc, those are also some kind of weird bugs that we haven't worked out yet. That's why these things aren't released yet, because they're not quite done, but they're almost done. They're done enough that we're happy to show them to you, and they will be entering public beta testing very soon. Am I using Vsync? I have Vsync set to auto in Space Engine, which means that it's just, only capping the frame rate, but I can try changing Vsync to on. And just see what happens. Well, it's not doing anything. Space Engine's Vsync can be a bit jank sometimes, like not responsive to changes in settings. Alright, let's see. Oh, here we have a bunch more questions in the Discord. People raising their hands this time. Alright, the camera moves. I was asked, does the camera travel as a geodesic that gets warped by the black holes? No, the camera moves in a straight line in Euclidean space. Would the accretion disk of a quasar be any different from the accretion disk of a normal supermassive black hole? I mean, there's no such thing as a normal supermassive black hole. What matters is the rate of accretion onto the accretion disk. And if there's a very low accretion rate, then most black holes will look pretty similar at a given accretion rate relative to their maximum stable accretion rate, which is known as the Eddington rate. So, I mean, you can have a stellar mass black hole with a very high accretion rate, and it'll look very similar to a supermassive black hole with a similarly high accretion rate. And what you'll have in that case with a stellar mass black hole accreting at a very high rate is called a microquasar, because it's just that. It acts like a quasar, it's just way smaller. So the mass of the black hole is not as important as the accretion rate, because because black holes, everything about them, the physics of them, it's all the same basically, and the size units you use, like the actual mass in solar masses or kilograms, the actual radius in kilometers or AUs or whatever, kind of becomes irrelevant, and you need to talk about things in terms of black hole units, in terms of like the distance from the black hole in terms of Schwarzschild radii or gravitational radii. So like the distance between the center of the black hole and the event horizon, and then how many multiples of that are you away from the black hole, and that determines the properties of the accretion disk for the most part, not the absolute mass or size of the black hole. This update, I was asked if jets will also be on pulsars or only black holes for this update. Right now, they just accompany accretion disks, so any object that has an accretion disk can have jets. But we don't have pulsars implemented yet, as far as being visually accurate. So, unfortunately, no, probably not this update, but that's definitely something we want to do. Excuse me, my voice is breaking a lot lately. Obviously, going through second puberty. Will any new black holes be added to the catalog? Yes, I believe so. And some of the existing ones will receive updates to make them more realistic. Will gas giants be more detailed in the future? Yes. Where can I submit new code for black hole systems for the next update? There are some threads on the forum that I have set up for submitting fixes or additions to catalogs. So you could just throw it in one of those or make a new thread if you already have over 10 posts there. Alright, let's see. What other questions have I missed while I was reading Discord? Anything over here in YouTube? Oh, it was not even showing me all the latest posts. Will the system requirements change because of the new black hole rendering? No, the black holes themselves don't really affect the system requirements, but it has been over 3 years since we last updated our system requirements, and due to the number of changes that Space Engine has had since then and how that has affected the requirements for the program, and also due to other changes outside of Space Engine that have happened over the last few years, like um, which operating systems are supported by the graphics card vendors and the drivers they create has changed over the last 3 years. So we will be updating the system requirements to be in line with all of the developments that have happened over the last few years. And we will be in our next blog post, we'll have a section addressing that, what has changed and why, and so on. Okay. All right, I'm going to get back to the stream now. Sorry if I missed your question. There's just so many posts. All right, let's see. So we can look at some wormholes now. And fans of the movie Interstellar might recognize this one. Also, let's reset time to present, because why not? And now we can actually see Saturn in sunlight. Again, I have no idea why the stream is being jerky when I'm clearly getting, 60 or near 60 FPS. So here is a wormhole. And you can see in the background, outside of the wormhole, we're clearly in the Milky Way in front of Saturn. But inside the wormhole, you see what almost looks like an image painted on the inside of a bowl, where you can see there in the middle there, that's the Milky Way seen from the outside. And this is a different galaxy. And there's a small Magellanic Cloud in the center there. And what could that massive thing back there be? I wonder. Alright, so let's move slowly into this black hole. I mean, in this wormhole, I'm sorry. And... whee! And that's it. We've just passed through a wormhole. And if we turn around and look back at this wormhole, we can see that there's Saturn and the Milky Way in the sky. And we can, let's zoom out a little bit, make our field of view 60 degrees, and then let's go through the wormhole sideways just to see what it looks like. It's almost like putting two bowls together with the sky of each side of the wormhole painted onto each bowl. And then there's like a flat division between them. It's sort of like that. It's really cool. Alright, and of course we can also play with the throat length of the wormhole. So this is a wormhole with a throat length of 0. But we can increase that. So here we have a throat length of 10. No, that's not what I wanted to do. 10, thank you. And now you can see all of these concentric rings that are formed. Whoa, okay. Trippy. And let's zoom out a little bit, and then as we go into the wormhole, you can see that there's this long tunnel that we're in. And it's like we're in between two, ringed structures here. Or we can change the throat length to be something more modest, like 3. And that's not quite as extreme. Still pretty trippy. Right, let's pop on over into flight simulator mode. There's Saturn. Alright, let's spawn a spacecraft here. Oops, I don't have this configured properly. So we'll turn on UFO mode. And there we go. We just flew a spacecraft through the wormhole. And now we're being accelerated by the colossal forces of Gargantua. Okay, not sure what that was about. Alright, I'll try to answer a few more questions now. Will it be possible to have a multi-wavelength view of objects in Space Engine? Um, that's something that's really difficult to do. With objects that have a black body spectrum, that would be pretty easy, yeah. But for other objects, not so much. will we add low frequency sound effects for black holes, stars, neutron stars, etc.? Um, yeah, we do plan to add ambient sound effects at some point in the future for all kinds of objects and situations, but that's to do that well and comprehensively is a significant undertaking. I would really love to see that happen, but it's going to take a lot of effort.
Hey, Harp, do you want to maybe show off Sagittarius A star since it's been in the news there lately?
Yeah, I'll show that off.
Cool.
Oh, but before we do that, let's see if we can show off the new warp drive effects. So let's get our spaceship going at a high rate of speed away from here. Alright, now that we are sailing away from Gargantua, let's go to our warp. Why does it feel the need to do a full spin like that? That's very silly. No, it's not warp delta V I want to do. Let's... There we go. Alright, and now let's spin up the warp drive. Whoa. And there we have it. That's pretty insane. What the heck is the spacecraft doing now? Okay, cool. Let's turn on some ambient light so we can actually see it. No, that is not what I wanted to do. Thank you, Space Engine. Alright, now we're inside the bubble with the spacecraft. And we can see back this way that it looks pretty insane. Back the way we came. And as soon as we start reaching this bubble edge, everything gets crazy. What the heck? Yeah, the blending between the warp bubble rendering and the screen space rendering of the ship is, you know, imperfect. That's something that can't really be fixed unless the ship itself is rendered with ray tracing and integrated into the same rendering pass as the warp bubble, which is extremely difficult and expensive to do. Okay. So let's slow down here a bit more. So our speed is not quite so insane. Let's align our velocity vector more parallel to the plane of the galaxy. Okay, and now let's engage the warp drive again. Man, that's insane. Let's turn up the brightness of galaxies so we can see these effects better. That is really cool and really trippy. All right, let's bring it out of warp. And there we go. All right, let's see what other questions we might have waiting for us. Will Space Engine ever take advantage of hardware ray tracing? Yes, probably someday. That would make a lot of things possible, and it would simplify a lot of things. But first, we need to migrate from OpenGL to Vulkan, which is one of the major things that we are planning on doing. That's going to be a very involved and time consuming process, but we are going to do it. And also, we don't want to make Space Engine too reliant on effects that require hardware ray tracing until a large enough fraction of people have it. Because if a lot of the really important effects in Space Engine rely on hardware that most people don't have, that's really not fair. I mean, it's one thing to require people to have, you know, somewhat decent gaming graphics hardware to have stuff that looks really nice. I mean, there's no way around that. But to lock out everybody who doesn't have ray tracing hardware when a lot of people still don't, that wouldn't be fair. So it'll probably be a couple of years before that is an option. But it's possible that it could be done in a more limited way before then. Um, we do plan to implement the Gaia catalog. It's not as simple as it sounds because the way that Space Engine loads star catalogs now is that the entire catalog is loaded into memory and all of the stars are present in the scene um, inside a Space Engine at all times from the moment it's loaded. So if you want to load something with millions and millions of stars, then it takes several minutes just to load the program, and it's also really slow once it's running because it's having to deal with, millions or tens of millions of stars all at once. So what's required in order for the Gaia catalog to work practically in Space Engine is you need to have a system of being able to load from your drive only what you need when you need it. And so you need a system of how to identify what data you need and stream it in, and also dynamically on and load and unload catalog stars. So you need to have an efficient and effective star catalog octree, the same as exists for procedural stars, and it's not easy to implement stuff like that. We do plan to do it. We would love to do it. Having the entire Gaia catalog in Space Engine would be incredible. So we definitely want to do that. We've wanted to do it since, I mean, we were talking 10 years ago about doing that and how exciting it was going to be when the Gaia catalog came out. So yeah, no, it's definitely something we want to do. It's just not something that can be done in a day or a week. Will Ton 618 be added? Yes, we already added it for this update. All right, let's move over to Discord and see what we have here. Someone asks if we're going to have terrain shadows soon. That's very high on our priority list, so hopefully in not the too distant future. Talking about collision of ships with the surface and why they appear to be hovering over the surface when you land them. That's because the ships use a very simple, um, just radial collider. It assumes that the ship is spherically symmetric, so when the ship's length or its half length is the same as its height above the surface, then it's considered collided. What would be required for it to work better would be to do at least some kind of bounding box collision, or even better, custom collision mesh. But that's way more complicated to do. I mean, obviously it can be done because people have been doing it for decades, but that doesn't make it easy to implement in your own custom game engine that you've built from scratch. Especially when the situations that you need to handle in the engine are as extreme as they are in Space Engine. Um, yeah, as Space Engineer said, wormholes will be they'll only exist as part of user created add-ons, so you can add them yourself, or you can download add-ons that other people have made that include wormholes, but they will not generate naturally. Will it be possible to add a system where you can more easily create your own objects in Space Engine, own planetary systems? Yeah, we do plan to have an overhauled planet editor that allows you to dynamically add objects to the program and do everything inside the program without having to edit catalog scripts to add new objects in. That is planned. Could Space Engine be described as a simulation of the universe? No, it's more of a representation, but nothing is actually being simulated. It's not a simulation. Everything is static or on. Yeah, basically everything is static. Orbits are more or less static, as in you see things moving around on Keplerian orbits, but like they're not. It's not like an n-body simulation. It's not a gravitational simulation as something like Universe Sandbox is. Was the development affected in any way by the war in Ukraine? Yes, a little bit. I mean, not a whole lot, but it did change the way we had to do certain things, and and the war did impact some of us pretty directly. Um, so yeah, there was an impact from that, but overall, we've been able to come out stronger for it. I think like we all came together and we all you know decided to make everything the best and most robust and most resilient team that we could have, and improve the way that we did things just to make sure that everything would remain okay no matter what happened. And I'm really proud of what we accomplished there as a team. So like as I've mentioned in some news posts, we actually have a company now, and we're getting more and more people onto the team. We just added another programmer to the team, like literally just now. So yeah, we're going to be doing some really awesome stuff hopefully over the next year or so. If your camera is spinning in all camera modes, even in free camera mode, that is almost certainly due to a phantom, not a phantom, but like some kind of unwanted input. So, like having a joystick or gamepad plugged in, and one of the inputs on that is triggering the camera. will a fuel system be added for spaceships? Yes, I did implement some of like the rudimentary elements of that, but it still requires testing and bug fixing and things like that. So at some point we'll do a more spaceship focused update. Like that's one of the things that will be really good when we're working on the transition to Vulcan. When during that time we won't really be able to do very many low level things to the engine or graphical things. So things like spaceships and generation improvements and catalog improvements are the things that we'll be able to focus on then. So that's probably the best time to do that. And we plan to switch to Vulcan in the relatively near future. So yeah, I would expect a spaceship oriented update during that time frame. Will there be a way to customize nebulae and galaxies? I mean, you already can. All right. Now I am going to go to some of those black holes we talked about that we haven't gone to yet. So first, let's switch back to planetarium mode. All right, let's go to Sagittarius A star, and we'll switch to auto exposure for that. And we'll let the go-to take its time taking us there just so we can enjoy the view. Let's go to manual exposure now. So yeah, very large diffuse accretion disks like this currently kind of murder performance. And jets can look awkward blending with disks on occasion. That's something else that we are looking into improving before release. Like I said, these things are not finished, but they're done enough that we are happy to show them off for you because I mean, it's just so exciting, you know, finally having stuff like this. So we want to share it with everyone, and as we said, they will enter public beta testing pretty soon. So yeah, even before they're done, we'll let you test them and see if you can find any bugs that we haven't found and any suggestions you might have. But this is roughly what Sagittarius A star should look like according to all the research that I did, and the best that we can approximate its appearance using the current new accretion disk system. It has a very thick, as in puffy, expanded accretion disk with a very low density. So it's very hot and very diffuse, and the majority of the mass is actually shot out away from the disk in the form of jets and a sort of stellar wind, but it's like a disk wind rather than coming from a star, but it's like a solar wind before it even gets to the black hole. So perhaps as little as 1% of the mass that actually accretes onto the disk initially makes it to the black hole. and the rest is thrown out in these jets, either into long eccentric orbits away from the black hole or shot out on escape velocity out into the galaxy. Does it have visible animation? Yes, all of them have visible animation. It's just a matter of time scale, because Sagittarius A star is a supermassive black hole, so you have to turn the time speed up quite a bit to really see the animation. And of course the weirdly jerky capture is not making it easy to see things. And I bet with all of these subtle gradients and everything, I bet this looks amazing with Vsync compression and then YouTube's compression on top of that. Do volumetrics also apply to white dwarfs and neutron stars? Yes, they apply to, any object that has an accretion disk will have the new volumetric accretion disks, all of them. Alright, so now let's go to something else. Somebody mentioned ton 618. So let's go check that out. Alright, so here we are at ton 618. We've got some stars actually inside the accretion disk, which we won't be visiting on account of the stars don't sort properly with the disk. So they'll either render in front of it or behind it, and it will look weird. And here we have these just magnificent Doppler shifted jets here. And here we can talk a little bit about quasars and what makes quasars what they are. So let's increase the exposure a little bit here. And so when we see an object from an orientation somewhat like this, and it's got a very dense accretion disk and it emits a ton of energy, this is what we call a quasar. And if we see it from the side like this, then there's some other name for those objects, but they're usually not identifiable as quasars necessarily, because the way that they name things is not based on the physical properties of the objects, which are not always knowable, but it's based on their observed characteristics. So it's all based on what we see and not what it is, because that's just a limitation of how astronomy has to work, because you can only go on what you see. You can't necessarily go on what something is, because you have to do a lot of careful observation and analysis and long-term observation of an object to get a better sense of what it actually is physically. So initially, when you classify something, everything has to be done according to just what it looks like, what characteristics it has that are observed. But anyway, so if you look at it down the line of sight like this, we can show this better off in the HDR mode, that from the side it doesn't look very bright at all, and then from this angle it looks pretty bright. And then when we start looking at it like this jet is extremely bright when it's pointed almost towards us because the jet is traveling at a large fraction of the speed of light. And so when we see it like this, the object becomes massively brighter, and we identify it as a blazar. And so if you ever hear the term blazar and how is that similar to a quasar, basically quasar, blazar.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. Are protoplanetary disks now a thing? Unfortunately, not yet. The system that we're using for the accretion disks isn't quite applicable to protoplanetary disks. Like the basic rendering technique, eh, sort of could be. I mean, you can make something that looks like a protoplanetary disk, but actually having something that sorts properly with the objects in the system instead of rendering only on top of it or only behind it, that's going to take a little bit more work. Will there be variability for procedural accretion disks? Yeah, of course. They're not all going to be identical. Are there any Easter eggs in Space Engine? Um, sort of. There's a nebula and black hole and star cluster that are a tribute and thank you to one of Space Engine's biggest supporters and someone who's done uh, fundraising for us in the past, and she's really awesome. And her screen name is Skylius, and she's a streamer on Twitch. Asking about more gameplay or story elements associated with spacecraft. Yeah, I mean, there are going to be more gameplay elements, and in the long term, we are going to have an actual game and not just a free fly around flight simulator thing. And that is going to have some kind of plot and backstory. Like even if it's not like a big plot that progresses as you play, it'll certainly have a backstory and world building. Um,
We don't want to talk too much about the
oh, okay. There's some weird noise going on. Anyway, what other things are there? What material is in the jets? It's all sorts of things. I mean, it'll be ions and charged particles. It could also be. I mean, depending on how the jet is formed, it could also be. There could also be neutral particles like maybe gas, like atomic hydrogen or helium or something. But usually the temperatures at the base of the jet and in the accretion disk at that point are so high that there won't really be any neutral particles left. They will all be ionized. So it's mostly composed of charged particles. People are asking about what does it look like if we go close to the event horizon. We can look at that. It does look different than before, so I can explain what that's all about. Also, let's zoom out a little bit and maybe fly into the accretion disk here just to have some fun, because we haven't shown this off yet.
So I think we're going to be wrapping up here, so I think we need to do like last call on questions, and then we should be about done.
Yeah. Sounds good. I'm going to accelerate time here. Do real jets look like those conical funnels? I don't. They probably don't have hollow insides. I don't know why we ended up implementing those. That might just be a temporary thing, or it might have been a limitation. But are they conical or paraboloidal in shape? Yes, they are. They usually start out emerging from the disk at a fairly wide angle, and then they get, straighter and straighter, and less divergent as they go. They become collimated. Why are the jets brighter than the disk in HDR mode? It's just a weird quirk of how things are implemented right now. That's something that will likely change before release. I mean, I don't know if it will or not because I don't know all the details of what the limitations are. I mean, I'm not the one who programmed those things, so but it it's something that could very well be changed before release. All right. Anybody have any other questions? Oh, right. I was going to show the event horizon itself. That was the whole thing I was about to do, and I forgot. All right, so let's edit this thing real quick. Okay, cool, thanks. Why does it still look like that? Okay. So if we go close to the event horizon now,
Have we seen any? We haven't seen any white dwarfs or neutron stars yet, have we?
in answer to the question about white dwarfs and neutron stars, no, we haven't looked at any yet. And why is this not letting me get closer to the horizon? That's weird. Okay, I'll have to do it manually, I guess. No, no, no. Not that fast. Thank you. Why does it think... Why is it giving me a negative height value? This is weird. Something's broken here. But yeah, you get the normal blue shifting when you get close to the event horizon, just like before. But... Oh, now it's breaking. But, unlike before, the universe doesn't collapse into a point above you because, again, we're taking some of that light travel into account. So you're looking at it sort of from the perspective of a moving observer, but the movement is not the camera's movement. It's just if you were in a free fall. And that means that at the event horizon wouldn't appear to collapse around you into a point above your head, but rather would be kind of flat, like you're standing on a planet. I. What would be the point of adding radio galaxies? I'm curious because Space Engine doesn't display radio light. Concerning the visuals and where we get the information from, I mean, most of it comes from just the latest scientific research on the subject. We just read the papers and see what people have discovered most recently. All right. If anybody wants, we can go search for a neutron star with an accretion disk. We can go to this random galaxy right here and give it a shot. Yeah, the star browser doesn't work very well for that sort of thing. I wonder if I've got one saved somewhere. Let's see, look in the defaults. Aw, there's no default neutron star. Oh right, I can just go to a catalog one. I'm sorry, my brain is not doing so well today. All right, so let's look here at this accretion disk. If I can turn up the exposure far enough. Okay, that is a little bit. Huh. Why was it so invisible from far away? This is a very thin accretion disk. So let's do something about that. Maybe turn up the temperature. let's see what we can make here. The disk is still massively dimmer than the star. Yeah, we need to put some jets on this thing. Alright, try to read through some questions one last time. People asking stuff about official Discord servers. Read the video description, there's a link. Anyway, so I think we'll wrap this up for right now. Thank you everyone for joining and for your questions. And you can always stop by the Discord anytime and chat, ask any questions, get any help you might need, or you can visit our subreddit. And yeah, so keep an eye on the website and on Steam for the announcement of the start of public beta testing, which will be pretty soon. And until next time, I hope everyone stays well